But this is a story that I heard from Rabbi Nissim Mengel. Nissim Mengel, a wonderful person. He's a Chabad Hasid. He was in the Holocaust. um, he was in the Holocaust. He was taken in when he was young. I guess it must have been shortly after or even before his bar mitzvah. It could be that I told you the story before, but I'm going to tell it again anyway. So he said that he lived in Hungary, and the end of the war, the Germans conquered Hungary, and they made a big effort to kill all the Jews in Hungary. There was altogether something like about 400,000 Jews that were killed in Hungary. And they rounded them up. It was all by the trickery and deceit and everything. And that was the whole story with Kastner and all. And because he and his father were taken to Auschwitz. And they were in Auschwitz. When they were in Auschwitz, so they stood in line, and there was Mengele. May his name be blotted out forever. May he burn in hell. I don't know if there's any punishment that's could possibly. I guess Hashem will figure out something. And he used to send people for selection to the right or to the left. I guess if you pointed to the left, that they were killed, and pointed to the right. Most people didn't really understand what was going on. Up until then, they didn't really comprehend. There was no sign, and that the Germans were so cruel. Nowadays they're saying the Hamas is like the Germans. In fact, the Germans were much worse in a way than the Hamas. Because the Hamas, they did these terrible atrocities. I mean, this just, sadistic levels of sadism that you just can't believe. But they did it because they enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed, the murdering in these just atrocious ways. And I just heard about it. I just can't. And the Germans didn't do it necessarily from enjoyment. They just did it because it was like, a job to do. It was like a job to do. They enjoyed doing their job. They enjoyed, being loyal to the government, or, if you have to murder, they probably enjoyed murdering people. And it is, but it wasn't done with such tremendous lust. That wasn't the main motivation to do it. So they were very cold and very meticulous, in what they did, the Germans. That's what they say the Germans are really, that's the true example of Amalek. Amalek is the father of all the other bad, destructive emotions, like the Hamas is, just bloodthirsty and just, lustful and this. And they were just cool. They were just cool and cold. They could, murder, and they would, shoot Jews all day and then take a little break, a coffee, and then go back and kill it. Anyway, so he came in with his father, and somehow or other they passed him through. They passed him through this. I guess he must have been healthy looking, but he was short. He was short, but somehow or other he made it through the selection, and he went through, and everybody had to take off their clothes and throw them into this big pile, and they gave them prisoners' clothes, so that everybody would first of all know that they were prisoners, and then they would put numbers on their arms. They would tattoo the numbers on their arms. So he went through the thing, and they put number on his arm and everything, but they couldn't find clothes for him. He was too short. So they gave him the smallest set of clothes that they had, and they put it on him. So that was in one station. They went to the next station, and the Germans are like very, very, precise. So they saw him with these clothes on, and they said, "What's this? You rolled up your sleeves." Everybody has to have proper clothes. You go back to the pile, put on your regular clothes until we can find clothes. That's what he told the story. So he went back to the pile of clothes, and there was a huge, huge pile of clothes from all the prisoners, I guess they took in that day. And he went through, and he found his clothes. And right next to his clothes were his father's clothes. So nobody was watching him. He had permission from this high commander to go. So he searched in his father's pockets. Maybe there was something there. And he found that there were two little bags, paper bags, the cloth bags, whatever. So he took them and he put them in his pockets. They told him to go back. So this rabbi, he was young, just a young boy. he put on his clothes, and in his pockets, he took these two bags that were found in his father's pockets from the clothes that his father removed from himself. So he ran back to the line. It seems he didn't even know what was in these two bags. So he went back to the line as though nothing happened. And when he sensed that no one was watching, so he took one of the bags out. He told his father, and he took one of the bags out and he gave it to his father. His father opened up, and there were from some sardines. Sardines. His father sensed that maybe they were going to be taken somewhere and they weren't going to have what to eat. So he put some sardines in this bag. So he looked in the sardines. They were already tremendously hungry. I guess they already hadn't eaten for a day, who knows how long. And he looked at sardines and his eyes began to water. He realized that this could be the difference between life and death. Life and death. And so he put them back in his pocket, and then when no one was watching, again, so later on, so he surreptitiously took out the other bag and he looked at it, and it was a pair of tefillin. His father had small tefillin, and he put them on. He used to put them on every day, small pairs of tefillin. Tefillin don't have to be big. Chabad uses big ones, but they don't have to be big. You just have to have a very good scribe that he can write properly. But there's tefillin, I've seen tefillin from Sephardic Jews that amazing. Whoever wrote them, it must have been just a holy genius because they're small and exact, perfect, amazing. So he had tefillin like that small. He said when his father opened up this bag, he almost couldn't control himself. He almost burst out weeping from happiness. But 100 times more than when he looked at the sardines. He just was shaking with this, and he put it back in his pocket, and he managed to control himself. And said when they got to the barracks, so his father hid the tefillin, and he would put them on. When would you put them on? They couldn't put them on in the daytime. Before the sun rose, they would take them out to work. And after the sun set, or by the time they got back into their barracks, the sun set, and then they would be, that's when they would get back in. And said that when people found out that there were tefillin, that they would line up, they would run from their barracks to his barracks, even though it was dangerous. He didn't want the tefillin to leave his possession to go somewhere else because he was afraid that they would lose them, that people wouldn't watch them. So he kept them in his barracks, and even more, it could be that they would be in somebody's hands and they would kill that person. So people would risk their lives to run. In the middle of the night, they would stand in the nighttime, and they would stand and say a blessing. Even non-religious Jews, they would stand and put the tefillin on and say a blessing, and take them off in the nighttime. I mean, technically, you can put tefillin on in the nighttime. There's a side reason why you don't, but Jews don't put tefillin on in the nighttime. It's a law. You're not supposed to put on tefillin after sunset set. But they had no choice, so they put on tefillin in the nighttime. He said that these people, not only were they risking their lives, but the only time that they were free a little bit from the horrors of their situation and the pain and the suffering. It was cold, and they saw people killed. When they went to sleep, at least they were free. They were free. And that little bit of freedom they were willing to sacrifice in order to put tefillin on. So the whole entire time that they were there is that somehow or other, amazingly, that the Germans did not detect that the tefillin were there. He told other stories, but the stories become mixed in with other stories. That one day he had this feeling that he had to take the tefillin with him when they were going to work. And just had this intuition that he took the tefillin with him to work, even though it was a little bit of a bulge, and he was the Nazis could see it, but they didn't. And that day they said they weren't going back to the barracks; they were going to stay where they were. They were moving to a new place, and if he would have. They were stayed there for a half a year. He wouldn't have had tefillin for half a year. And amazingly enough, that the whole time he was there, he put these tefillin on. So it shows what a Jew is. That a Jew wants to serve God. I mean, they were put into the Holocaust because they were Jewish. So you figured he would be bitter and he wouldn't want to have anything to do with Judaism. Exactly the opposite. That they realized that Judaism has nothing to do with logic. It's got nothing to do with the world. It has nothing to do with our situation. That whatever God does is good. Somehow or in this crazy, painful, frustrating world, We're going to see that it's good. But meanwhile, at least we'll do as much good as we can. And that's why they put on tefillin. That's the whole idea of Hanukkah, making a little bit of light in a very dark world. And that light will increase until the whole world will be illuminated with the truth. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, Chag Sameach, and see you all tomorrow, 8:15.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.